It is a day that where we started in year 2006. The day initiated by leading FM associations globally, associations such as IFMA, associations such as BFIM globally, in order to advance the recognition of FM globally and the value that it adds within the built environment, and also enabling organizations to achieve their key objectives. As we know, FM, it has two parts: hard services, soft services. Mostly is known with hard services such as building maintenance. Over the years, we have seen FM expanding in being inclusive of services such as cleaning, IT, logistics, fleet, business continuity management, to name but a few. Facilities lately, it has enabled organizations to transform due to circumstances as they come, as we continue. Like, for example, now we're facing a pandemic, where we see facilities management, it has to organize itself, it has to be a change agent. Facilities managers, as now we are seeing the shifting, the opening of our economies, like in Botswana, where we're being asked to go back to our offices. Now we see facilities managers being part of the front line, which for the past few weeks, it was the soldiers, the police officers, the nurses, the doctors. We have to come in there. Why do we have to come in there? The issues concerning if people go back to their offices, they expect a lot. A lot should have changed. I'll give an example. If I walk within an office block, I expect that if I walk inside an office, the doors, they have to automatically open. I don't want to touch the door handle because it might be infected with COVID-19. When I go in, I expect some social distancing. I expect a lot of office sanitizing, cleaning. I expect, especially if I go to the bathrooms there, I expect them to be cleaned timely. So facilities managers now are seen as frontline, to win the front line against the fight against the COVID-19. In Botswana, facilities management is an upcoming thing. The sector is still young, is still expanding. Government has piloted, we have seen it piloting within the health sector by outsourcing a few services, mostly being the building maintenance, cleaning, maintenance of health equipment, especially those in the ICU. Now I have panelists here with so much experience within facilities management. I have Chanda Kusane, I have Evans Moje, I have Caesar Tshupelo, whom I would like them to introduce themselves. Thank you. Chanda?
Good afternoon. My name is Chanda Masendu-Kusane. I'm the Executive Director of Minnacle Group, which comprises Minnacle Properties, Minnacle Academy, Lele Facilities Management, and other companies. I am a real estate practitioner with a BSc in real estate, a master's in real estate. I'm a project management professional certified by the Project Management Institute, and I'm a Prince 2 certified practitioner. Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Who comes in? Evans? Evans, or Caesar?
Good afternoon to everybody else who is listening in. My name is Caesar Tshupelo. I'm a practicing architect. I'm currently the chairman of the Botswana Construction and Built Environment sector at Business Botswana. I'm also a board member at Special Economic Zone Authority, which is CESA. Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in a lot of issues in architectural practice and other, amongst other issues. So I'm looking forward to participating fully into this webinar today. Thanks very much.
Evans.
Okay, thank you, Lead. My name is Evans Moje. I am a qualified quantity surveyor, registered in BW. I studied diploma in building and civil engineering with City and Guilds. I've done advanced diploma in property finance. I've done an MSc real estate, and I'm a member of Institute of Quantity Surveyors, registered quantity surveyor, Real Estate Institute of Botswana, registered valuer with RIAC, South African Institute of Valuers. All these areas that I've covered, I'm fully participating on them as a career. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, panelists. We'll go into the first part. At this point, the entire world, globally, we're talking about COVID-19. Past few weeks, with most states were in lockdown. That means most of these users were home, either working home. Our kids no longer go to schools. Shopping centers, malls were closed. Most sectors within the economy couldn't function because all of them, they need to be accommodated within a building or facility, sort of. Now, we are seeing most states opening up. They want to go back globally. In Botswana this week, we opened up a bit. We have to go back to the offices. We have to go back to the malls. We have to go back to the hospitals to visit patients there. Now, the situation is we have COVID-19 situation here. We have seen the havoc. We have seen how many people are affected globally. Italy, Spain, currently in the US and the UK. In the past, we saw what it was happening in China. Fortunately here, we haven't been hit hard by COVID-19, but we have to be alive to scientists, they like saying the second wave. Imagine if you open our borders, what is gonna happen? Yesterday or past 2 days, someone entered by the Clocken border, and then he was tested, he was found to be positive. Our permits, movement permits for the past 2 days were suspended. We have to be alive to this. Now, we want to go back to the offices, just open. What does it mean to facilities managers? Facilities management is the big thing when it comes to the built environment. That means all these buildings, all these schools, all these hospitals, when you open up, a facilities manager has to be there. He has to ensure that the occupants, the users, the visitors, they have to be safe in case of, in context of COVID-19. So panelists, I'm opening this up to you so we can discuss this. Chanda. Chanda?
Yes, I'm here, thank you. I'm going to be sharing a screen right now. Okay, good afternoon. I hope I'm audible. Am I, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, so basically I'm going to start with just the definition of, facilities management. I'm just going to give a bit of context on facilities management. There are many definitions, which some of which I'm not going to touch on. The International Facilities Management Association defines facilities management. South African Facilities Management Association, BIFIM, the British Institute of Facilities Managers. It's all there, and this presentation is available for sharing hereafter. So I'm going to just look at the definition. How do I move? Okay, the IFMA definition that the practice, facilities management is the practice or coordinating of the physical workplace with the people. So it's about workplace and people. Workplace, people, and work of the organization. So we find ourselves right now, as you rightfully mentioned, Mr. Chair, observing or going through a phase in our lives where now there's conflict between the people and the workplace. The people are coming in with the virus, leaving it in the workplace or spreading it in the workplace, as would observe and see. And I'm also going to talk to that in the presentation. So now as facilities management, as facilities managers, one of the key things really about a facility manager is that they have to be very agile and be adaptive to the fast moving pace of the world. So we find ourselves here, COVID-19 has come. So we have to make sure that there is, we resolve this conflict between the physical workplace and the people. Now, this is broadly speaking what facilities management entails. There's the space planning part of it, which now talks to congestion. How are we going to decongest people? How are we going to ensure that there's reasonable space? And ensure that, from a proximity perspective, so that's the space planning perspective. I mean, in the past few years, what we've observed is that design has changed. Traditionally, design was more offices and individual offices for individual people. As organizations evolved, space changed to open plan, where there was more densification. Open plan came with densification. It came with cost save. There were lots of benefits for entities when open plan was introduced. Now we're looking and we're seeing, and I think we're observing even before we do any scientific research, to see that the open plan versus the traditional offices or the old style offices, obviously open plan now brings in a lot more challenges. Facilities management talks to hard services. Hard services, this is the common one which we've seen, and I believe Evans is going to talk to that, which we're observing that this is where primarily Botswana has moved. When they say facilities management, it's almost synonymous with maintenance, and you're always thinking, is this all? There's also the risk management perspective, which talks to business continuity. And we're seeing ourselves right now. We are, and we've become the front line, as you mentioned. Facilities management has become an imperative, a core function, primarily because it has to now offer business continuity more than the fire and all the other functions it used to offer. We need to make sure that businesses continue to operate under the circumstances. Building and personnel, building security and personnel security, which talks to now your health and safety issues. This is key. Other issues are there, which we talked to, which are part of FM, your logistical support, your real estate management, your travel and transport. I used to work in an organization where the FM used to include travel, where now at this point we'd be calling for saying travel should be reduced, primarily because it brings in or introduces the factor of bringing in COVID into the country or into the building or into the town. Other issues also, soft services, very, very important at this particular time. Soft services, we're talking to issues of cleaning, reception services, and things like that. So that's the part. So holistically, this is the facilities management offering as documented. Okay.
Thank you, Chanda. You're done.
Wait,
Oh, yes.
I'm not done. I got ahead.
Oh.
Error. Sorry, I was trying to move my slides. So basically, when you look at FM, FM introduces work satisfaction. We need to ensure that when we open, when we leave here, our lockdowns, as we currently under lockdown, people are satisfied, our clients are satisfied, our colleagues are satisfied at work, the employers are satisfied at work. This is a key imperative. Productivity, efficiency, continuity, sustainability, and compliance. This is all theory of facilities management, which I was introducing my presentation on. Now, talking to FM, I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, if I should proceed but with this particular portion, or are you going to give me an opportunity later?
Yeah, let me give you an opportunity later so that we flow nicely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Evans, next it will be you. You see, within facilities management space, there's so much lack of attention. Lately, we see people coming with sanitizers. We don't even know if they've been tested. There's nothing, you know, even Bobs cannot even certify that a certain supply of sanitizers, this kind of sanitizers, that are suitable for use. We have seen service providers going inside workspace, trying to sanitize the entire place. You know, if you can think of the air quality, whether it's being tested, whether it's being suitable, if people they walking in such a kind of a place where such kind of activities occur, will they find themselves safe in such a space? I will give you the floor, Evans Moje, so that you can share with us a lot. I know these are kind of things that you cover, issues such as workplace management system, visitor management system, workplace sanitation policy, issues concerning how we do desanitize the HAVC, that's air conditioner system, the ducts, you know, all sorts of things. Thank you, Evans Moje.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, with this new pandemic, I think one of the issues that came on board was hygiene, especially at the workplace or everywhere else. Now, from what we have seen, from the experience that we have from some of the contracts that we are involved in, there has been a bit of a pushback, especially from the clients, when you talk about cleanliness and hygiene, because it has been felt that is some kind of wasteful. But with the COVID-19, it has really now shown that that is necessary, and almost all governments across the world have mandated that now cleaning is mandatory. Sanitizing has become mandatory, and no one will be allowed to basically walk into a place that has not passed some standards. Now, still on hygiene, as Tony has said earlier, in Botswana, FM is still at the initial stages. It's still a growing profession. We are operating in an environment where there's a lot that still needs to be done on the FM front in terms of quality assurance, in terms of standards, especially the health standards now, more so that everything currently is geared towards the health of the users. In some of the contracts that we're involved in, especially the health one, as referenced by Tony, the COVID came when we had already suggested the client to install sanitizers in their facilities. But due to, as I said earlier, no buy-in from the client, they were a bit slow. It only became a scramble after the COVID-19 came on board. So you can see that, you know, as an FM practitioner, you can sometimes try to suggest best practice, but due to maybe other constraints, maybe not known to you, it will be difficult to achieve some of these things. I think the COVID-19 also has brought on board how the service providers are going to be selected. Now there's a risk because everyone is a risk. Every service provider is a risk. There's going to be some standards, as already said, that no entity will be allowed to operate without a SHE officer or a SHE rep. Now that effectively means that all service providers will have to be screened, will have to meet certain selection criteria to be able to offer services to clients, especially in the public domain or public facilities. Having said that, again, it comes to an area of when we talk of real estate, we've been working from home for the past close to 40 days or more. Some people have managed to successfully operate their businesses from home, especially with the availability of technology. Now, some people are going to go back and really look into their requirements. Example, I've been using a 200 square meter space. Do I still need a 200 square meter space? If I don't need it, what does that mean to the real estate fraternity? That means I'll have to release the 100 square meter if I only need 100 square meters. So this might lead to more space becoming more available. And this could also lead to rentals also coming down because now there will be a lot of available space and depending on the demands. So basically what I'm trying to say is that this might bring in something that nobody has thought of because now people might be comfortable working from home than going to offices. Again, it will reduce the advent of traveling all the time of workers, the traffic jams that we see in the mornings and in the afternoons. So those are some of the things that I think the COVID-19 will bring on board going forward. As I mentioned earlier, all entities, I think government has already mentioned that they have to have a health and safety officer independent of the entity. Currently, we have that in place, especially on the construction sites, but those have been part and parcel of the contracting entity or the service provider. And at times it compromises the quality, it compromises the very mandate that the SHE has been appointed to do, because it's also being paid by the same entity that they are trying to control or manage. One of the things also that are happening right now, a lot of people are fumigating their offices in preparation to go back. But as FM practitioners, we have to be wary of that for the simple reason that some of these chemicals that are being used, they've been approved by some standards. Are they really the right kind of chemicals to be used? The fumigation, in some instances, I've been told they are done on ceilings, but we understand this virus, it goes down, it doesn't go up, especially in a room kind of environment. I was at a doctor the other day and he has a air quality measurement tool, which he showed me, and he measured the air on his facility and it showed that the air was unsafe because he's sharing an office with a fumigation company. So the chemicals that are stored in those premises, they're causing problems on the air. So those are the things that people have to look at. As Tony has said, that now when you walk into a building, you don't want to touch anything. You just want to walk in and walk out. Now, we do have different types of, there are different types of services, as Chanda has said, on the FM front. There is hard services, which are largely your construction or maintenance. Then you have the soft services, which are largely the cleaning and the security. Now, when you look at cleaning, in Botswana, yes, there are cleaning companies that we see out there in the malls and the offices, but are there any service level agreements in place that are tied to the performance of these companies, or they just clean for the sake of cleaning without any performance monitoring? Now, this has to call in for the performance monitoring, because now, I mean, we have heard, we have read that the virus can stay on surfaces up to 8 hours or something to that effect. So how frequent does one have to keep on cleaning the surfaces to ensure that if there's any chance of the virus sitting on any of the surfaces is dealt with appropriately? And who monitors that this task is done? Now, coming to security, we have guards all over the place. If you go to all our malls, there are guards there. But again, the issue of what you call not having to congregate, not many people in one place at the same time. What does it say now? Are we violating the COVID-19 protocols by having too many guards on our premises? I think the people managing those facilities should probably look at other type of security. For example, CCTVs with fewer guards on the premises, have control centers of the CCTVs and those kind of things. Basically moving towards technology than human managed kind of security. I spoke about procurement, I spoke about real estate. Now call center. All on the FM front, call center or the help desk is very, very key, because the FM, that's where you receive the call center or the help desk, that's where you receive a lot of reports. In a mall, if anything happens, the first person or the first contact should be the help desk, or in a residential setup or a hospital setup, any report has to come through the help desk, because the help desk help you, the reportee, to make sure that your report is tracked, your report is you are given feedback, and your report is attended continuously, and also to check whether your report is an emergency or just a normal report. So all the FM or the shopping centers, I believe they do have this help desk where people can report or lodge in their reports. I think for now I'll stop there, Tony.
Thanks, Stephen. So yeah, you covered a lot. On quality. You went into the analytics collection of data by FM people. Global workplace analytics. At this point, they're conducting a study. That's globally. This study, they're looking at people who are working from home instead of the normal offices. And as per this, what they're seeing now, though they haven't concluded, they're saying organizations, let me just quote, companies where technology and culture are aligned with working from home are likely to endorse the new normal. The new normal is, why should I go to the office when I can work from home? Working from home these days, there's the IT side. The IT side, you use softwares. And this softwares, you know, it's you have heard of people hacking into other organizations' softwares and so forth and that and that. One wonder if that can be sustainable, if it's sustainable, if it's possible in context of Botswana, because here what you have to do is your softwares, when you host them mostly outside Botswana. We don't have a cloud in Botswana, but you will talk about it later. The new normal, what we are talking about, social distancing. You expect that when you go to the office, the distance, minimum 1 meter apart. If you walk into our CBD, if we go to our schools, educational facilities, if we go to hospitals, it's densification within a square meter. You want to utilize any space that is there. But now there's this thing of COVID-19 social distancing, the new normal. When organizations open, if I visit an organization, if an employee goes back to the office, they expect social distancing. This will force organizational leaders, managers to start thinking. It will force facilities managers to start enforcing this social distancing measures. Now, this is a space for space management. It's a space for office space designing. I think this is a space for Caesar Tshupelo also to cover. Mr. Tshupelo.
Thank you very much, Tony, on that aspect. I think mine is basically to look at the design and what the COVID pandemic has actually, done to our profession, which is also interlinked with the facilities management. I mean, as you know, that architecture basically is a subset of the built environment, of which we deliver the design of the variety of buildings in their formats, which leads to the physicality of them in the construction phases and the occupation that follows thereafter. So what the COVID pandemic has actually challenged us with is that we have to work with the new norm that has been touted quite a lot around, which means that the design of buildings, the design of the spatial economics of the internal of spaces has got to be relooked. Our building standards have got to be revisited once more again. The whether is it going to affect our profession per se? My argument is I doubt it. Pandemics, though this one will look more deadly than the previous ones before, and the spread of which they spread much. It will come, it will go, but it actually has to give us a sense of awakening of how we now have to relook our designs and the spatial occupations and the spatial economics and all the other matters within. Architecture works with a variety of project portfolios, coming from ranging from residential, commercial, industrial, and what have you. There is talk about whether there will be a need for physical infrastructure development in the future. People will now resort to the advancement of technology of working from home. Look, the technology has always been developing, and we are appreciative of that. But the separation and the cultural mode of working can never be disappeared, because there is a need for saying we now have to social distance and work from home, and other people could know. I mean, look, we're still gonna have to need certain industries, certain sectors of the built environment to function outside the homes. We are talking about working from home in a more corporate culture. But manufacturing cannot do that. Schools sometimes cannot do that. Of course, there is an argument about schools being able to be taught to some people to be taught remotely. It won't happen that way as quick as you can imagine that, because look, there are laboratories that people will need to use to test whatever that needs to be done, including even the science and research technological laboratories. That cannot be done remotely. They'll be done within an institution. The only advantage that we got is the way we now have to relook the design of premises or the design of the building structures. The design of healthcare facilities have to get a new relook. Now, let me talk about the relationship between architecture and facilities management. Often more than not, you'd find that facilities managers had to inherit structures and the usage of the built environment, output products as they are, because they have always been done without their input. So what is now going to have to happen? And it doesn't necessarily need for us to be saying, what does the world do and what can we do not to catch up? It's just a collaborative issue between, the real estate professionals, urban design professionals, facilities management professionals in every new project, including the occupational health professionals. It's now we're gonna have to always have to share information and collaborate on most projects. If I design spaces and then the occupational health specialist has to look at my designs and say, does the special economics that I've designed for a certain building, does it work? Does it conform to certain standards that would need to be developed for occupational tendencies in our buildings? Perhaps, yes, that will do. As the facilities manager, is the one that is going to have to be managing these facilities for the end users. What did we go wrong? I mean, we need to always have to eliminate the wrongs that has to happen. So what we need to do is now for every project, public, private, or even individual projects, we always, I'm not talking about collaborative of working in some sort of a standard contract per se type of building form. It's working collaborative in a standard way of saying the client has to be one. Sometimes advisory issues has to be availed and say, if I have a certain, I'm designing my house, and what standards is my house going to be able to be looking as compliant in the special economics that that will need to say, well, if you have a room that could have 2 children sleeping in it, the contagious, adherence and defense mechanism of any contagion happening within the room. How big should the room be? I mean, it's going to have to change a lot of things. It has to look at, people who allocate land and say, do these small plots that we have done in whatever, if we have to adhere to bigger room because of the distancing within certain building designs, do we need to, what I'm saying is a lot of things need to change, a lot of things need to give. Let me stop there and I'll continue a bit later.
Are you done? Caesar?
Yes.
Yeah, done. Yeah, no,
yeah, I'll
you
touch
covered
on
a lot.
others as we go, and
Yeah, you covered a lot. And I was thinking of, if you expand the social distancing aspect of it, looking at if you had to go into a shopping center, you go to a supermarket, and then you want to ensure that as people move up and down across shelves, picking what they pick, you as a owner of the shopping, I think, supermarket, you want to ensure that there is a limit, sizable number, to ensure that per square meter of space, it enables social distancing. Now, for the past 2 months, some tenants, it has been tough for them to pay the landlords. Now, when you think of this, if it is a new normal, will tenants be able to make will they have adequate income to enable them to pay the landlords? If you go into a school with this new normal, especially looking at the public sector educational facilities, we hear of classes where you have 50 kids in one class. Now, if you want to do this thing, is it sustainable? If you want to comply with the new social distancing measures. But anyway, I know you touched that on the next stage. Now we are moving to the next stage where we are going to discuss about occupying our facilities, being the office, being the retail, the educational, the health. Yeah. Are we ready for that? I would like Chanda to go in on that one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so again, I'm continuing with the presentation. So I'm just, the touch areas in a building, there's so many, and it's, sitting, it's actually scary when you come to think of it. Handrails, we're used to touching handrails as we go up the stairs, your doorknobs, our doors, even if they're push or door. Somebody is going to push, the next person is going to push, and perhaps push on the same spot. You know, your elevator buttons, your sinks in the bathrooms, in the kitchens, your countertops, window sills, somebody's, you know, leaning against that, your light switches, equipment controls, your cabinets, somebody's going to collect a file, vending machines, your chair arms, your copiers, I'm really saying all these, highlighting them, not perhaps that I have a solution, but these are some of the dangers that we see, because the question is, are we ready? So then at the back of our minds, the first question should be day one on the 22nd, because lockdown, I believe, should end on the 21st. On the 22nd, these are the immediate touch areas, and it's natural. People are used to it. Human beings are creatures of habit. They're used to touching these areas. They're used to going to all these places. What do we do about it? What do we do around it? Okay. So looking at FM from our own context in Botswana, I'm going to stick to the private sector because I do not have information or any knowledge of the public space. So basically, you know, we've seen over the years, the engagement of FM is in portions, maybe one small aspect of FM. You saw the whole table, which I had there on the screen, plus I know Ivan's also touched on that. But it's small portions that are being adopted into the spaces now, and that's what we've been observing. And then we see that there's a reluctance to embrace total facilities management. And then the inclination is always towards, you know, the hard services, the maintenance, what is believed or perceived to be, you know, more needful, without consultation from the experts to say, no, but you need 1, 2, 3, 4. Ivan's rightfully highlighted one of the key things of FM, your call center, which gives good data, because a call center is not only a call center for reporting, it also is able to give good data, you know, to the effect that how come Aircon X is reported 4 times a year or 4 times a week. It means something needs to be done. Should we keep repairing it or should we replace it? Good data can be extracted from a call center, and these are big imperatives that we should see ourselves moving towards. Caesar talked to this one. FM is seldom engaged at project development stage, but these are the people with the institutional memory pertaining to how the building runs. So we're developing buildings and the development team is sitting there, PM, architect, QS, everybody else. And the person who runs the building, the person who's going to take care of the building during its lifetime, the person who's got institutional memory around, you know, if we're going to use this particular element in this particular design, it tends to fail a lot quicker. You know, it becomes defective before the building even turns a year. There's also reluctance to engage skilled personnel. I talked to this. You know, decisions are made at executive level somewhere without the input of an expert to say, you know what, we cannot, you need to move in this particular decision. So decisions are made without the right information. Now, what is the role of the facilities manager as we move in right now? Are we ready? The facilities manager is supposed to look into issues of reducing concentration of personnel. I talked to our open spaces, our open plans. We did. I was quite passionate about open plans in my last 8 years, in the past 8 years. I really believed in open plan. I was one of the people who really believed open plan, hot seating, which is around, you know, one person. Some functions, like for example, functions where, let me give examples, real estate, where people are always outside. Why should you have 10 desks when people come in one at a time? So why can't you have 2 desks and it's hot seating? Chanda comes in, she plugs in her laptop, the next person comes in, they plug in their laptop. These were economic ways of utilizing space. Now we've got the issue of COVID. How do we ensure that, you know, spaces which were hot seats are safe for people? How do we ensure that these congested places are safe for people? Reducing physical proximity of staff, that's the role of the facilities manager. We need to see that these things are actually happening. Managing our building systems. Ivan talks to the air quality. Ventilation, you know, windows, maybe. And I know for you know, for the longest time in recent history, we've been advocating for air conditioning, ensuring that we close the windows and we're circulating good air. time windows? Do we need air from outside and not recirculate? Our air conditioners functioning well to produce good air of a good quality and not spreading the disease? Not much is known about COVID and all these things, but these are some of the things, and this is the role of the FM again. Cleaning and disinfecting, managing visitors to buildings. Yes, we've got the regulations which talk about taking temperature, recording. So this is another imperative for the FM, ensuring that the right number of people are coming into the building, and those who are coming into the building are healthy. They are not going to be bringing the disease into the building. All these issues. Issues around food services. Should buildings be offering tea and tea services to guests and water? If somebody is going to be taking water from the fridge and offering you water, they've touched that water bottle. Is it safe for you to take that water and drink it? Or after that water is put on the table, should somebody spray it before you touch it? So these are some of the issues. Issues of business continuity. And the one very imperative and critical one as facilities managers, we have to ensure we're informed and disseminating the right type of information where we're not causing panic, but we're enabling business. So these are some of the key things. You know, are we ready? So in terms of access control, are we going to be seeing people coming in with access control? What type of access control? Some of the buildings had already moved and advanced to fingerprinting and some sort of biotech or technology where you touch. Is it safe now? Should they now go and introduce more distant and non-touch type of access control? Sharing of tools of trade in our sector, construction and the whole built environment. The one man is holding a pick and a spade, gives it to the next person, or even just coming back to the office space, which is really what we're talking about, facilities management. One person is taking a pen, passing it on to the next one, passing paper. Just me giving a piece of paper to my colleague, I've touched that. Am I exposing that to another person? So these are some of the issues which indeed we should be talking to and trying to find solutions around, because there is this imminent danger, and it is in the way that it's almost inculcated, it is inherent in the way we've been doing business. And it's going to be a bit of a challenge now shaking that off. We're used to walking into a lift and we're chatting almost close to each other. A lift usually is written, if a lift is written 8, we already know we have difficulty. Already 6 people in it, it's already full. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to now reduce that to 4 people and make it so that people are so distant there's a bit of an echo, so that people are not spreading the disease to each other. Service provider, as we go back to the building for our service providers, and this one is a key concern, and I just wish this gets to the relevant authorities from a quality control perspective, your BOBs and whoever sets standards in this country. We find ourselves with COVID or under this cloud of COVID-19, but there seems to be a chase rather than a lead when it comes to standards. Right now, Evans was talking to air quality. Everybody, I mean, you get onto Facebook, you find this new companies on and they're already advertising how they were spraying somewhere. And is there a standard around the spray that they're using? Has it been set? At least a minimum standard to guide. Is there a way, you know, from a coordination perspective, from a regulation perspective, you know, anyone can just wake up, mix. I was reading yesterday about how somebody is selling water and vinegar as a sanitizer. So this is very, very important when we're talking to preparedness as we return. And again, Mr. Chair, I'm just saying all these, not because I'm saying I have an answer to your question, which is the readiness. Are we ready to go back? I can't say at this point because I do not have the scientific information, but I was just posing all these questions and highlighting issues that perhaps we need to deal with very urgently, because we are going back to work next week. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chanda. One thing that we all know is if you look at all our organizations, if you look at the public sector itself, it's FM always that budget allocation. FM is always undermined. If you look at within the private sector, it's so sad, it's so bad. Now we are forced quickly, FM is forced to act now. and then you wonder what kind of leadership is it being given? What kind of competencies to concerning FM that are supposed, what kind of competencies exist within such organization? What kind of competencies exist within public sector concerning FM? Now, if you expect FM to take a lead and fight against COVID-19, you are opening schools. Do we have adequate competencies that can enable FM to achieve the biggest goal, the goal of fight against COVID-19? Now, we are shifting, we're going to the next stage. This one concerns the FM services providers, the facilities managers. Are they well prepared for this next stage as we open up, as we start, as we get more utilizations of facilities, buildings? I will ask Evans to lead us on that.
Okay, sir. Yep. Are we prepared as FM practitioners? As we prepare to open up the economy? It's a yes and no answer, in the sense that, as earlier indicated, FM being a new phenomenon or a new area or a new profession, boils down to the service providers' understanding of what is facilities management. As already indicated earlier on, some believe facilities management is maintenance. Even some of the clients still believe that facilities management is maintenance. But those who are involved in facilities management know that is more than that. Facilities management is so broad. So I wouldn't say we are all 100% prepared. For example, let's take a primary school. You are talking of minors, school kids at the school. If there is a FM company in Botswana maybe managing a primary school, it's going to be a very difficult situation for them to ensure that all the requirements of COVID-19 protocols are met. You probably now have to employ more people to try and control to control the environment at the school. That now calls for more budget. Now, there's going to be an issue of budget. As earlier indicated, this sector has not been given the attention by the clients. Now, we have concerns right now of these handheld thermometers. For institutions, as you go into malls, as you go into a shop, you go into an office, there's a person now holding a thermometer, taking temperature. Obviously, that is now an additional cost to the entity, either human cost or the thermometer itself. Now, yes, over time, there could be some innovator who could come up with a freestanding, remote-controlled thermometer, which doesn't need any human intervention. Now, at the offices, at the entities, at the schools, at parastatals, at the banks, you might need to have a holding room or some kind of a nursing room, whereby if somebody's temperature or whatever symptom is not accepted one, they can be temporarily held in that room until the doctor or until they get assisted. We might have a situation now where we run out of ambulances, because now there might be calls all over town. Say, can you come, this person with the symptoms, ambulance has to rush there. So there might be a need now for private ambulances, which could now come in and assist where the need, if we run out of ambulances from government or councils. There could also be a need for entities to appoint or employ nurses. It might eventually lead to a situation where the chief officer alone is not enough. So there might be instances where now there has to be a nurse within the premises, at least to ensure that the patient or whoever is being given attention to is stabilized until the necessary help arrives. So going back to the question, as FM practitioners, are we ready? There are a lot of issues that will determine our readiness. We'll just be coming out of the lockdown. There are no supplies. We have to buy supplies to ensure that we are ready. The economy has not been functioning. There are procurement systems in place that might need to be followed. At times, those procurement systems take time. Your clients have to understand, they have to have that understanding of the FM and that understanding of how you as a FM practitioner, you are trying to protect their business, you are trying to protect their customer, you are trying to protect their premises. So there's still a lot that will need to be done for us to say, yes, now FM is ready. When the opening of the economy takes place, everything will be in order. Unless if maybe somebody within the attendees or the panelists can see things differently. I'll stop for now.
To have all things that you will need to provide efficient, effective services. What is it? Okay. I'll ask Mr. Caesar Tshupelo to chip in on this one.
Okay. I'll have to enter this debate from a designer's perspective. I know Ms. Kusane has said a lot about what FM is all about and where the applications of FM can be done. I think what we need to do is to fully understand this whole animal code facilities management in all its applications in all aspects of the economy, be it in the built environment, be it in the health sector, be it in the ICT sector, be it in everywhere else that is needed. That is when we can understand how vital the FM space ought to be. In my view, I know how important it is, and I've seen how it works in international and even in our neighboring South Africa. How much do we need to sensitize people about FM? You were talking about how ready are we to get back to to work to the retail sectors, to get life back to the new normal, whatever that new normal is supposed to be. I think one of the things that we also ought to do to everybody else as designers is now we need to design buildings and spaces that people will be able to understand how to use spaces. We are not going to design buildings that are going to go high-rise without stairs and lifts. You can automate lifts by way of opening them up or whatever the case that may be. That might not be the same with staircases. And staircases, we have actually, and what Corona has taught us is that it is actually mostly found in surfaces. And there's no way how you can traverse from floor number 1 to floor number 4 using staircases and not be able to touch the staircase. How do we deal with that? Do we have a system, a mechanical system within staircase lobby areas that fumigates the area if there's no usage or whatever. It's at any interval. Let's say 1 minute or 2 minutes or whatever the case may be, and we always have to have that thing that continuously fumigates the staircases coming from that particular space. It is one of those options that we have to look into because these are occupational health issues, you know. And then one of the suggestions that I actually want to make it is also that, you know, occupational health has never been taken into as a big thing in the design and built environment issue. We've actually disregarded it, but this is the time for us to take it more seriously. And then OHS, which is Occupational Health and Safety and Environment, ought also to become part of the curriculum in primary school, even in pre-primary, so that young people also grow up being mindful within buildings of actually understanding the applications of occupational health safety measures whenever they are traversing with buildings. They might even as well, like say Chanda's daughter can have say, Mommy, we're not supposed to be touching walls, we're not supposed to be doing this. Because kids learn faster than us. Adults usually, it's not like they don't know, it's just that we are likely to be more ignorant. But I don't want us to be lingering on as if COVID is going to be with us all the years. At some point, it will dissipate, just like cancer. But we would not want it to come out of remission and be able to be another attack and find us vulnerable again in issues that we have never been learning, we had learned from before. So, you know, the issues about COVID has got the effect on the economy. And I mean, for now, the world was closed for, well, primarily the 70 or 80% of the world economies are still closed out. You know, few operational here, but there will be a point in time when we will get back to a level whereby 80% of the world economies have opened up. Then what we learn from that? Because, you know, one thing that we need to do is, but countries now should now start being self-reliant economically, which means if manufacturing, real estate, retail, whatever that we're going to be doing, somehow, the majority of what we're going to do as an economy, we have to always make sure that we are self-reliant. We have got our local investors, we got our local building materials, we manufacture with them. The issue of exportation, importation, sorry for that. We have got to move away from that and be able to say, look, what resources do we have locally that we can say, are we going to be able to use certain building materials, whether we're using the Kalahari sand that was sampled by Vitri and putting it into our economy, which means we are using locally, you know, vast resources that we have, but we are not utilizing that because we are reliant on certain technological or whatever of materials that we can still keep importing. We haven't tested issues about FM should be in the future, be able to work close in hand with the research and development. That is very, very important. The aspect of ICT, part of FM in the built environment. Why would we put all the synergies together? This is a big challenge. So we need to have a dialogue between FM, the built environment, and all sectors where FM is applied, and see how do we synchronize all these synergies together. Because there's not going to be one FM and the other one and the other FM for the industries, another FM for manufacturing, and FM for schools, FM. We can't do that. I stand to be corrected from the FM practitioners, because unless and until we drum it up to the leaders that be, that we need FM like tomorrow. And I'm not hearing from the FM practitioners about the cost issue of if we have to work towards the FM, if we have to adopt FM fully holistically or at whatever speed that we're going to do, how much benefit does the client or the investor reap out of the FM? You know, the whole value chain of beneficiation to the investor, to the client, to the user, to one who actually funds his infrastructural development, was saying at the end of it, this is how FM comes into play, but this is going to be how it comes into play. I would want to hear that, because this is the conversation that is more important, and cost for everything is important in infrastructural development, because you need to convince someone that the quantity surveyor is important into the design team. Can you do without him? I suppose not. But at the end of the design team has done all their work, how important is the FM within the collaborative space that Chanda has talked about? Because if he has a value, and we have to value him better in terms of the one that manages all the infrastructure that has come into the physicality, then how do we value a firm in all the aspects of its application? That's what I can say.
Yeah, thank you, Caesar. You touched a lot on facilities economics. Yeah, that is good. You know, that is something that those who make decisions on budgets, finances, and what, they never pay attention to this. They lack appreciation of, they can't appreciate the cost benefits of a well-designed a facility and a well-utilized facility, to see that if you put all good work in there, if you put all class in there, so that at the end you have that facilities that you can enjoy, that you can, you know, that is sustainable. I think we've covered a lot. I think Chanda is comfortable. Is there anything that you have left behind?
Can I chip in?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we in the immediacy, I think the government is mooting a situation where they want to stimulate the economy for now. Short term, I don't know how long the short term is going to be, but like Chanda has said, there is going to be a rush of refurbishing public institutions and public spaces to be able to say we are complying with COVID or occupational health measures. But she's very right in saying we don't really have the standards to which we are going to be working from. And, you know, it is also going to be bad if we're going to be working on standards that are going to be borrowed to work on a short-term solution. Because remember, short-term solutions sometimes can be very expensive in the long term. I don't know what could be done in interim, whether the built environment professionals with the health professionals, with the FM practitioners, with everybody else, to get to propose standards. I mean, standards, I know they take a lot of time. I don't know what Bob's has got, any standards that have been prepared, so that when we do a certain refurbishment, I know they're going to happen. The refurbishment is because some government offices are too crowded, and they cannot risk that. Say, for example, a tall 7-story building in the government enclave, having to accommodate 400 people at a go. And then how do you actually have those 400 people work within, use the circulation spaces, which is your passages, getting into offices, getting into staircases, getting into lifts, and this heightened, you know, spread threat of COVID as well. I know the country is doing very well in combating this thing, with 6 live cases that we still have and being monitored at Masendu-Kusane Hospital. But, you know, it is not saying we're out of the danger yet. You know, there might be a sleeping giant out there where tomorrow you can have 300, like, you know, South Korea, I thought they have won this thing over up until 1% infected 53 in a nightclub. So remember now we're talking about a nightclub. They have actually said they wanted to open up some certain areas of where people could socialize and see how the dangers are. Now, how do it actually gives us a way of saying, now, how do we design nightclubs of the future? You know, type of things like that. But let me work to the Botswana context. One of the suggestions I want to make is that, whether short-term or long-term, I know when we design preschools, we always have to include seat base. But, you know, we can always have a small room. Chanda will perhaps disagree with me on that or agree with me on that, where, excuse me, where we can have a mini clinic with health professionals or nurses who can also be contracted by the corporate clients or whatever. They can always come on to the emergent basis within an organization to address these issues. Rather than we having a bit of a health challenge rushing from your office in the CBD or wherever you are, whatever way you are based, to a clinic I think that could be maybe an FM solution. You actually have this facility within the building that you're working from. And it actually would help, actually in my way, it can create employment. You know, finally, let me talk a little bit about this. Ebola is still not dead yet in parts of Africa. And we would hope that it doesn't cross over to this side. It is nothing as deadly as Ebola. And Ebola has never crossed into the Western world because obviously it has got its way of transmission. And in Africa, it's only coming from Central Africa to Western Africa, which has never been out this way. But we can try and work on the standards for COVID. But if tomorrow we have our African sleeping giant called Ebola in our borders, then what are we going to do in the same spaces of designing? You know, we actually have to make sure that we understand pandemics or epidemics as they come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caesar. Talked about Ebola. You know, we are not supposed to be here. As SARS, there was bird flu, fortunately, then, but now it's COVID-19, same sort of flu. Hey, next door we have yellow fever. You never know. If it comes here, what is going to happen? Because we don't pay attention to the health and safety aspect of buildings and facilities. If you go to Kigali now, if you go into a shopping complex, they have to search you for whether you have guns or bombs because of Al-Shabaab there. Here, are we going to wait for such kind of incident to occur here? Because we don't measure this, we don't do analytics. When we look at a building, we always isolate it. At this point now, you think that government now, unfortunately, is thinking that only she people, they are the people with solutions. You have seen it social media where our schools, I mean, people that taps there, those are high maintenance taps. First week, what's going to happen to those taps? Yeah, someone has to go in and fix those taps. That's poor quality. Anyway, I don't want to go into that. I understand the events. You want to add something before we go to, I think there are two questions. So events, you can chip in, then we have to answer the questions, maybe allow people to call in. So thank you, events.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tony. I think briefly, I would just maybe touch on the way forward, because there has to be a way forward. As we have all said, as we all know, FM is new. Okay, newer in Botswana, it has always been there elsewhere. I would urge all the FM practitioners to possibly come together. You know, it's better to get together, thrash these things together, and approach the powers be as one voice, rather than individually trying to convince the powers that be on your own. It sometimes becomes very difficult. And also the FM practitioners, those who already have clients, I know they have had struggles with some of the clients, but most of the issue is the mindset, as already indicated by one of the attendees, that we need to change the mindset of the people, the mindset of the powers that be, the mindset of the clients. Because if people still believe that, you know, FM is just maintenance, just to unblock sewerages and drainages, then we still have a long way to go. There has to be standards that will have to be set, standards that needs to be, that falls under BOPS. BOPS has to make sure that those standards are adhered to. When Caesar was speaking, somebody also commented that FM, ideally, it should form part of the design team, because the FM is going to take over the facility upon completion. Now, if the architect is going to design, as in one of the previous talks I've made, a leaning window that is leaning outwards, how are you going to clean that window or that facade? So the FM in the design team will assist in ensuring that a proper functional design is the one that is arrived at, to ensure that the functionality of the building is going to be enjoyed by all post-contract of the facility. Also, the FM is very key because remember there are going to be maintenance post construction of the facility. FM will be in a state to know the cost associated with most of the materials, and they will indicate also the availability of some materials. If you're gonna construct a building using what do you call those line blocks that are manufactured elsewhere, now when you need to replace or extend your building, now you're gonna struggle because we don't have them locally. Also, we need to ensure that, as somebody also mentioned on the messages, that we have to advocate for use of local products to ensure that there is availability at all times. Spare parts have to be locally sourced. Because yes, I know architects, you want your building to be an iconic building. It has to have lots of glass, lots of that. But let's talk functionality. Will it be functional at the end of the day? You will have walked away and the FM practitioner is left behind with that building to try and make it functional. And at times it becomes a nightmare. Yeah, I think with that, I conclude my presentation.
So what you're saying, Evans, is any building post after this COVID-19, any other building, it should fall within someone's facilities management. We shouldn't be having a building which is not under any facilities management. If organizations, they don't have facilities manager in-house, they should outsource. Organizations, they need to have policies and facilities management, and such policies, they should be in a management of their facilities to some certain standards, legislation, so that is in order, so that we don't get caught with our pens down as it is now. Caesar, Chanda, something that you want to comment on, or should we go to questions?
I think there are people who are raising hands for questions. Maybe we can take questions and incorporate whatever we're saying with the answers. Should I switch on for the people who have hands?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a...
I'll switch on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you may I've switched on for him.
For who?
Teta, he raised his hand.
Hi, how are you? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Tshupelo Teta. I'm with Infrastructure Facilities Managers. Mine is not so much a question, but more a comment. I think it was Caesar who spoke about diseases such as Ebola and them. And my comment really is that I think whatever measures we're going to put in place now to deal with COVID should recognize that COVID is not the last pandemic we're going to see, and it's not the worst one. So we need to be looking at what can, what's going to come next, and how much, how worse is it going to be than COVID is, and ensuring that we design whatever interventions going forward to deal with that crisis, because we can't shut down every time there's a pandemic. We need to find a way to keep operating. And so I think it's important that FM needs to take that lead in terms of guiding what needs to be done going forward. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
Take another person. Okay, just okay, let me allow another person. Okay, Kelebogile Mafoko, I believe. Hello, Kelebogile. Okay, let me disable. Kagiso Morokoto. Okay.
Tell them to unmute. Tell them to unmute their mics.
Yeah. Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I good, Chanda? Yeah. My question goes to Mr. Moje. I wanted to know, since you are in the public or rather government service provision, how much interventions and how much what is your role in advising government in respect to its facilities, and how far do you go in trying to edify the government of Botswana in the need for facilities management? Because we walk around town and realize how government is always passionate about building this masterpiece art and forgets that they have to be kept alive and that they have to be continually serviced. I wanted to know that from Mr. Majid. And just a quick one to Chanda. Mr. Majid just spoke about something important that talks to maybe facilities management professionals forming some form of group or team. I think this will also service the general awareness of the need for facilities management, especially in the private sector. How do you suggest or table a way forward in this regard? Thank you very much.
Okay, another question. We've got, okay, here.
Hello?
Emma,
Hello?
proceed.
Oh, yes.
Proceed.
Hello?
Emma, Jalal. Okay, we'll move to another question, to another person. I think the last person, Enoch Malisi.
Advise them to unmute the mics.
Unmute the microphone. Okay.
Okay, Enoch. Okay, I think we'll close for now. Chair, over to you.
Yeah, I think comments and some of comments, some of questions. Oh, Maurice is back. Huh? Should we give him a chance?
Yes.
Yeah, Enoch.
Yeah, mine is a comment. There was talk of how we don't necessarily recognize what facilities management is. We just take it as maintenance management. And traditionally in Botswana, this is what has been happening all along. And I think as facilities management practitioners, it's critical that the government or legislators are made aware of the importance of facilities management. We should not just look at it as an opportunity to be in the space to earn an income, but it's a real opportunity for us to enhance the development of our built environment, because without facilities management, it's just a given that we are talking facilities management, but it's not practiced out there. And there are a lot of things that are happening, which if not addressed now, they will we will not benefit a lot out of this whole exercise. And then the other one, it's Caesar was talking about the design aspects, bringing in facilities managers in place. This is something that also has been talked of when we were still talking maintenance vis-a-vis designers, and it has never been achieved at any given point in time. But my thinking is that it is important that we not necessarily want to bring people into the design teams per se, because it might inflate the costs. But as long as all the practitioners are alive to the trends in terms of what is available technologically, because it's a fact that we don't have a lot of materials available locally in our economy. And we need to try and facilitate a process where we encourage value chains that would start developing, and these technologies that we can then use them being locally available. Thank you.
Okay, panelists, I think we should conclude now by shifting to the last item, which is way forward.
Tony, I thought we need to answer some questions first, isn't it? There was a question from Morokoto about sensitizing government. Tshupelo, did put him on, he has offered to answer that question. Put Tshupelo in.
Tshupelo.
He's offered to offer answer to that question, or contribute to that question.
Tshupelo. Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I think the association that is still in its fledgling stages is critical to this this assignment, because if we as IFM try to lobby government alone, it looks like we are just trying to drum up work for ourselves, and it doesn't have as much weight as if all the FMs got together in the form of association and use that to lobby government on not only the need for FM, but also putting in place the necessary regulations and governance to ensure that you don't just stand up and call yourself an FM and you're in business. So I think we really do need to get the association up and running so that we can achieve this. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
I think, Mr. Ndlebe, when you're still there, one thing that have actually become a shift paradigm nowadays is that government of Botswana now recognizes business Botswana as one of their highest esteemed stakeholder in advisory terms. And, I would urge that the FM practitioners have their association realigned with business Botswana as soon as they can, because I've realized that whatever advice that the business Botswana offers to government, they obviously enact it. I've seen with the COVID-19 presidential task team. So after all, whatever that whatever the joint meetings that business Botswana does with government officials on combating the COVID-19, they get to be accepted one way or another. So I think going post COVID-19, this is one way of saying, lobbying has to be done. I think we need FM, and FM is the new future. So I don't understand, but unless and until we get the powers that be understand the role of FM in every aspect of the economy, it was still going to be remaining with it being looked at as when it is needed only for maintenance of certain facilities or the likes. Because government views FM as one thing and the private sector views FM as another. I don't think we can have that different playing fields. I stand to be corrected.
Thanks, Caesar. Inokumalus is back again.
Okay, we've got, let me just disable, then we've got Horata Kafela.
Oh yeah, all right.
Makafela? Makafela, are you there? Okay. Disable. So she's also written the question, so I guess we can answer it. Did Enoch raise his hand, or do you want to continue?
No, maybe it was, this. Yeah, I think we should continue. Le Makafela.
Okay, continue.
Okay, Makafela, is she there?
I've disabled, she wasn't responding.
Okay. Yeah. What's next, people? Do we conclude? Go way forward.
Yes, I think so. I think let me put it from my side. I think one thing that is going to happen in the construction industry and the built environment industry as well is that we are working as Business Botswana and the practitioners in the built environment of looking at the collaborative way of coming up with standards, coming up with design, with strategies of designing with certain standards, and that alone, we have got the support of the ministry where FM is housed, which is the Ministry of Infrastructure and Housing Development. And what I've experienced a few days that I've been interacting, being part of the joint task force in the infrastructure sector, is that the government is willing to listen to private sector practitioners on the same equitable level of advice. And then they take the advice and we do the same write-up reports that they take it over to the powers that be. And somehow, I think some legislative amendments and whatever that we are trying to work with will probably get to be approved. So it's the same space as FM also need to come into that space as well. One thing for me, finally, is that risk management at any plenary stages will need to be taken as one of the highest degree now. Because, I mean, that goes to the investors, that goes to the practitioners, that goes to everyone. Because occupational health threats are all about risks. So we would have to work around issues about risks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caesar. I thought Makafela, she's sort of back. She's back, or she disappeared.
Okay, she's unable to talk. I think there's a connectivity thing, and we can continue and close.
Yeah, I think you gotta tell her who Chanda.
I wasn't prepared, so you can move to another delegate. I was doing that.
Fine. I'll go tell her events.
Okay, so from me, Tony, is, one thing that is critical is that if one and I'm going to quote Nekharata Kafela from last week's webinar, which we had, when she said, if you're not in a position of making policy, somebody else is. So this is to answer Kahuso's question in terms of, I think we all recognize as facilities management practitioners in the country across the board, be it from real estate and everywhere else. And I think having showed that that slide showing the whole universe of facilities management, we all need to, it's upon us to now come up with the way forward in terms of, is it an association? Is it an affiliation to an association? Is it, so it is upon all of us. So to answer your question, I know you were referring it to me. I'm also referring it back to you and to everybody else who's here in this forum, that maybe the time has come now for the voices to come together. Tshupelo and Tata did say that for all of us, and Evans, for all of us to come together, not speak just as Lele Facilities Management, but as the entire universe, talking together to these issues and ensuring that facilities management becomes what it ought to be. And we push for that, that type of agenda. I think that is that from my end.
Thank you, Chanda. Evans?
Okay, no, I think maybe just one item, because there was this issue of, somebody mentioned an issue of cost. The trick that I always use, that I've learned elsewhere, is that when the architects design a building, it has a lifespan. Every building has a lifespan, we all know that. Normally you took in 20 years, 25 years. But if you involve FM from the onset, you can add additional 10 years to that facility. Now you can show your client to say, okay, this is the building you want. You don't want FM. You can only use it for 10, 15 years. Beyond that, you now have to spend almost the same amount you built it with to make sure that it's back again to the function that you wanted it to. I think for me, that's my last word on that.
Okay, Caesar.
Look, we have got structures that are already been designed and we're already using them. There is no how that we are going to be able to change everything to be compliant with only one pandemic, like what Mr. Ndlebe said. COVID coronaviruses will always come and go. Somehow, there will always be another virus that will also come from another part of the world, whether it comes from Mexico, whether it comes from Asia, wherever it comes from. But we need to be able to now design health compliant buildings or structures. And the usage of such will also be guided by the FM, intricacies that will need to come within those buildings, be it industrial, commercial, residential, educational, health, whatever the case may be. I think what we also ought to do is certain guidances at the pre-plenary stages or even the pre-contract stages. Sometimes will not necessarily need to come from me as an architect. Perhaps maybe the guys will probably come from the FM feasibilities rather than coming from me as an architect. I will also have to be doing the application to following certain guidelines. That does not necessarily take away from me having a very aesthetic, quite looking building, but the functionality of buildings sometimes has got nothing to do with aesthetics. So you might probably find that within a pre-plenary or even a design brief that has been availed to the design team, that will also have to go to the FM to actually you and the occupational health specialist to understand it as well, if it's something that's going to be achievable in the long run. So that's what I'm saying, that we need a paradigm shift. And this paradigm shift now would also have to include a lot of dialoguing. We would need to see, we are now moving towards Citizen Economic Empowerment, Act that is coming in. A lot of our FMs have always been people coming from outside, mostly South Africans. Yes, but we need this industry to grow, and that will be grown by the domestic FM companies that has to, be born and grown and capacitated from within. There is a lot of space for facilities management as we speak from government facilities right now, and then you could, if hypothetically I can say, look, the budget for the FM in public facilities and undertakings, if let's say we're talking about 500 million pula, well, the economy now has been shrunk. But if it was the post-normal, so 500 million pula for awarded to facilities management can also create a lot of employment. And these are the issues, these are the dialogues that we need to tell government that if we have to engage facilities management, the aspect of them creating employment is huge. There is a cost, there is a lot of cost savings in facilities management, which is an outsourcing. One of the, in my final words, one of the issues that government has a huge wage bill is because they have got personnel that ought to have been, have taken out by outsourced, contracts and companies out there. Facilities management, if it enters the government public space, it could alleviate perhaps as good as maybe 1 to 2, 3, up to 10% of the government personnel that they really don't need, which is non-core. So we are talking about the, and facilities management companies, they could also be able to upskill, retrain, and be able to develop the human skill that government cannot do at this particular time, because they are constrained with certain budget, because there is no need for them to be able to train people in facilities management aspects, because that is not their core mandate. The core mandate basically of government is multifaceted. But this is the way I'm saying, if in my little bit of interaction with facilities management and being at the conference last year, actually tells me that there's a huge budget that citizen and non-citizen owned FM companies can benefit a lot. And we need to also restructure the FM the way it is undertaken in public contractual agreements that has been done out there. Because for me, it doesn't necessarily feel like facilities management. It looks like anything else that we find a certain name for it other than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caesar. Thank you, team. we've touched a lot on facilities management within as per how it's affected by COVID-19. This is a first session. There will be a next session that will follow this. Obviously, it will come, let's hope, after lockdown, so that we look back and see, are we doing well within that space whereby there won't be any lockdown measures. I think we've done well. About 52 people participated in this. 4 asked questions. I think 6-7 made comments. So this was good. Also, we have a video. I don't know how people, if they want to access it, how it can be done. Chanda.
It will be uploaded. We'll share the link and we'll also upload it on a YouTube so that it's easily shareable.
And also, I think Kako, the government side, one would think that both peers, whether bit peers, they can have access to this another view of this, so that we can always push this one. Thank you, Caesar. Your calling thing, business one is good for us. We'll use you as a channel, as a path, so that as we continue advocating for a lot on FM, when awards we go HLCC. I like that. Evans, you came in good. You went deeper technically. That's it. Just like you, Caesar. Chanda, that's good. Yeah, you did a good job. Thank you. Lekamoso.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.